Hey guys, what's happening? We're back.
What is up, people? How you guys doing?
Pretty good,
Better.
thanks.
Yeah. What were the predictions last pod? Did I say the Oilers were going to lose badly?
I think you did.
Well, I am eating my words. What a freaking nice game they had, eh? That was nice.
There used to be a lot of hockey games in the past few years where in December or January, especially January, Edmonton would roll into a city on the road and they'd play a game. They'd get in there 1-1 or 1-0, and then the rest of the way they just make it look easy. They get a couple of power play goals. There wouldn't be much to scratch at the other end. And then by the end of the game, it would be 5-1 or 4-2. And it just looked easy. They put 2 points in the standings and then just move on to the next town. Now, they wouldn't do that every night, but they do that a lot of nights. And that was the benefit of Connor and Leon. They'd each have like 3 points or 4 points by the time the night was over. And you'd see those games as an Oilers fan all the time. We haven't seen that at all this season. There was one game against Utah where they looked kind of similar back in October. And that's been it. They have not made a single hockey game look easy and comfortable until that game on the weekend against Seattle.
Well, they're capable of playing that game, which is great to see. I really enjoyed watching. I think I mentioned the previous pod that we haven't seen the Oilers really dominate. Like, I want to see them dominate a game. And I think that's probably the best game of the season. Full 60 minutes of hockey. I don't think they kind of lit up. They played a solid game. All the little things. They didn't back away from hitting. They stood up for each other, which was great to see. So that was great. That was a really nice win. I hope that it carries over.
Just think how good it would have been if they hadn't taken 5 penalties in the first 22 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, but the penalty kill came through, right? They did a great job. I think it was 6 power plays for Seattle, right?
Yeah, they were 0 for 6, and we were 2 for 2 on the power play. So we were 6 for 6, right? Yeah. On the PK. Nice. It was good. I mean, you know what? There was some turbulence early. I mean, having Nugent Hopkins back, I think was huge. You could see the difference on the power play.
Yep.
You could see the difference. I mean, and that's a healthy Nuge, right? You could also see the difference on the penalty kill. We went down 5-on-3 on a real questionable call. That was like Kulak's second penalty. I don't even think he touched the guy when he was trying to lift a stick. They called that phantom high stick. The ensuing one that put him down to, I think, was probably a legit penalty, but that first one. Anyways, we're down 5-on-3, and wheels could have fallen off real quick there, but they didn't. We had some good positional play, but we also got some saves, right?
Yeah.
And hate to go back there, but that's the difference between getting a save or two early and not. And far too often, this NHL, you're not easily going to be able to blow a team out. The teams are pretty good, and every team has some skill. You're going to need some saves. There's breakdowns that happen, right? Even when you're playing a full wire-to-wire 60-minute game, if you've got 8 minutes of possession, someone's going to come down on the other end on the counterattack, and you need to make that save, right? And we got that.
Well, there's a big test tonight, right? I mean, I hope all of that carries over to tonight's game, with Minnesota being probably the hottest team in the league right now.
That's a good segue right into the goaltending, right?
Yeah.
Which is, we always seem to end up there.
Yep. Thanks, Ken Holland. Full circle. Wallstedt's back. He passed on him, and now he's going to be like, I hate the Oilers for the rest of my life, like some of the players in the league. Let's see what happens tonight. But the guy looks really good. Wallsted looks like, I mean, he's only played, 9 or 10 games in the league, so you can't say that next coming of Grand Fear or Patrick Waugh, but he looks pretty good positionally. He's playing behind a reasonably decent team. It'll be a great test for the Oilers. I mean, we've seen them come out of like the Carolina game where they played somewhat of a very, decent game. Same with Florida, and then the next game they're completely flat. So tonight would be really, really telling of whether they've turned that corner or they're back to the same old habits.
I've watched a lot of seasons of NHL hockey as a goaltender who never played at an especially high level, but I watched the goalies, and you can tell when a rookie goaltender has confidence and he's not nervous about being in the NHL and he's happy to be there and he's basically starting to take the starter's job. But he rides this wave of minimal scouting. Now, I know every team does scouting and they do more than they ever have before, but as a goalie, there's just places on the net where you don't want the opposition shooters to aim at. There's situations where you don't want them to make you move in a certain direction. And the shooters eventually learn that, but they don't know it yet. So we're seeing the early days of Wallstead, and we see it with a lot of
You're right.
goaltenders.
You're
And
right.
we definitely saw it with Skinner. First year, great. Second year, okay, now there's some holes. In third year, he's been like heavily scouted and everyone knows what to do.
Right.
And it's tough to play a goaltender like that where he's got good stuff, he's playing with confidence, and you don't really have a book against him as of yet as to know
Not
like,
yet, yeah.
where his weak spots are.
You're absolutely right. And I think it happens more with positional goaltenders than the athletic goalies that flip-flop all over the place. They're harder to read. But you're absolutely right. The position goalies, you kind of need a little bit of time to figure out their strengths and weaknesses. And because they're so always square to the puck, you kind of see, do they have the reflexes to stop it on the glove side, or is it the blocker side? So it becomes obvious over time. Whereas with the athletic goalies that flip-flop and do the splits and dive around, it's a lot tougher to tell. So you're right. Maybe by next year, this guy's not as great as what he's showing right now.
But it's a tough time to play him right now while he's feeling it.
Yeah.
A couple things. I agree. I think early on, it's usually advantage goaltender, right? Until there's a book on him. Couple of examples from recent years. I mean, one in particular is if you look at Dustin Wolf, right? Last year compared to this year. It doesn't mean that I don't think he's a decent goaltender. He's a pretty good goaltender, but players have started to sort of figure him out a little bit. Team struggling. And as you mentioned, Skinner as well, when he came out of the gates, he looked pretty good. And then in this year, he hasn't really had a great start. One thing I want to get your guys' take on this being goaltenders. Devin Dubnyk came on, I think it was Dustin Nielsen or Stoffer, one of those shows. And he was talking about when he landed in Phoenix or Arizona, Sean Burke was his goalie coach there. And a lot of people, they think that Dubnyk and Skinner have similar traits, at least from the size perspective. I think Dubnyk's a bit of a better athlete. He's a bit more lankier as well. I think what Dubnyk was saying was when he got to Phoenix, Burke was drilling one thing into him. When you make a move, you set. When you make a move, you set. And he just kept drilling it into him. And I noticed this is before I heard what Dubnyk said. I noticed in warm-up last game, they were showing practice, his practice movements, and even just between plays. If you watch Skinner, he was sort of playing. He looked like he was playing his angles more. It looked like so. I'm wondering if you guys think that as fans we don't really take this into account, but the team hasn't had a lot of practice. The schedule's been crazy, so they haven't been practicing, right? So the last week or so here, they've had opportunity to go back and practice. And I'm just wondering for you guys, I don't know if you guys noticed that, and if anything resonated with you with what I mentioned about Dubnyk. That's one thing that I think that going back to the playoffs as well, Kelly Rudy was talking about how a goalie like Dubnyk, can't remember who it was. It was one of those guys talking about movement. And for a guy like Skinner, you want to basically get in front of every shot. You don't want to be flailing. You don't want to be jumping and using your blocker. You want to be right in front. You want to square up, right? What do you guys think?
I'll let Brandon chime in first.
Sure. I think you made a good point about mid-season adjustments. I think it's always hard for any player in the NHL to make mid-season adjustments. It's tricky for the goalies to make mid-season adjustments. It's especially hard when they have that condensed schedule and a lack of practice time, and they can maybe look at some tape, but they're not going to be able to, really work on it. So I think that's a really good perspective on, being able to work on some stuff in practice and change some of the approaches. I mean, if all Skinner's doing in practice is learning to keep his logo between the back bar and the puck at all times, then he'll probably see a higher save percentage. But as we saw in Washington, he was about, 2 feet off center in a couple of those shots that went in. And that's not adjustments to your game. That's just basic goaltending fundamentals. And he wasn't in the right position. So if he can somehow get in the right position again, and that comes down to movement, then he'll end up making a lot more of those blocking saves. But I'll come in over the top rope with a big hot take here on the Oilers goaltender. I think the Seattle game was kind of a disaster for Edmonton. And I say that because the goaltending looked good, which means they think they've solved the problem, which means they're just going to stick with Skinner the rest of the way.
Well, that's what I said last week, right? I said that's probably what's going to end up happening, right?
It's really frustrating when you have a guy that's making a couple $1 million a year, which is very affordable in the goaltending market, who's capable of shutting down a team and looking comfortable and making a save, as being a guy who's taking your team to a couple of Stanley Cup finals and saying, yeah, that's our guy. And to say, you know what, we looked around the league and there's just nothing better that we can get. So there's going to be a part of the Stan Bowman calculus that says this is the best option. We're just going to go with this the rest of the way. Whether something shakes loose at the trade deadline, I don't know. We're stuck riding this train the rest of the way. And that's not good enough to win a championship. It might be good enough to get some points in the standings, but you're going to get to April, and having not solved this, you're going to get the Stu Skinner that we see in the playoffs every year, which is maybe he shuts out Dallas with a brilliant game 2 in Dallas. Maybe he gets lit up for 5 goals like he did against Los Angeles in the first game of the series last year. Like, you don't know what you're getting. On the balance, it's probably more negative performances than, all-star performances. The team's not going to be confident as soon as a couple of soft goals go in. And so you're basically, it's like having a leaky roof where you say, well, I patched up that one place in the roof, so we're probably good until, like next summer. We can get through the winter. But you're not going to get through the winter because you've given yourself this sort of fake cover story that you've now bought into as believing it's possible to do it because you saw a small example of how you can get through it on Saturday afternoon. But over the next 60 games, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I agree with a lot of what Brendan's saying. And I think the decision here for the Oilers was whether or not they're going to get rid of Stu Skinner or you're going to upgrade on Cal Pickard, right? Bring in maybe somebody who challenges Skinner a little bit. You're right. I think prior to the Seattle game, I think the thought was they had reached a point where they were thinking, let's get rid of Skinner. Just can't do it with the guy anymore. Maybe keep Pickard and try and figure out a way of, bringing in somebody else. But you're absolutely right. And then he goes out. I think he feels the pressure. Obviously, they hear everything that's said in the media and everything that's on the podcast like ours. These players hear it, and he goes out and he puts on that brilliant performance. And all of a sudden, the team is thinking, yeah, maybe we get rid of Pickard and we bring out the guy from the AHL, right? And Ingram. And that's not going to serve you well. But on the flip side of that, I mean, I've looked at this goaltending thing at length. There's a handful of goalies that are available, and I'm not sure they're an improvement over Skinner. At least not right now.
And I think that's the biggest thing. Was reading a few things this morning, and a lot of fans are annoyed on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, about what Bowman's demeanor's been. I think he flat out came out and said, we don't want to make a lateral move.
Yeah.
And that's what I think they think a lot of these moves are going to be. And in reality, some of these moves are lateral moves that they're talking about.
Which is because the goaltending has a problem making lateral moves.
Yeah. Well, the people that are available, I
technical
think,
challenge out there.
he came out and said that because I think there was rumors of Brossoit coming out of I think Chicago to the Oilers, and he's been injured, for an extended period of time. And I think there was an article about how the Oilers didn't want to make that lateral move, not only because he's not much of an improvement, maybe he is, but on the flip side of it is he's coming from another long injury, like Connor Brown, and it took him a year to get going, and then we had Klingberg took him almost a year to get going. Steven's not a rehab center,
You brought up. There's a couple things I want to steer this in another direction in a second, but you brought up Brossoit. Brossoit, you probably remember, was an Oiler, right?
Yep.
He was touted as possibly the next starting goaltender for this team.
Yep.
Talbot got injured, I believe, a few years back, and Brossoit had to take the reins for a few games. And I don't know if you guys remember this one game, but I think it was a Toronto game. We had this massive lead against Toronto and Calgary. And I think that he blew that Toronto game. And in the Calgary game, I think we were up 6-0 or something. And they almost came back, and it was brutal. It was terrible. Where I'm going with this is we didn't re-sign him. He went to Winnipeg. Winnipeg was playing Vancouver, and I went to a game. I got some tickets from a friend of mine. So I went to that game. Winnipeg was getting demolished, and he was in net. They won that game 1-0. That's the issue, right? And I think, we go back to Devin Dubnyk as well. Everybody was happy that we got rid of him. And then what ended up happening when he ended up in Minnesota. I think he had a couple of stops and he went to Minnesota. And then he was an all-star guy. He's in the Vezina running. Goaltenders are so, I don't know, even a guy like Brossoit, right? Brossoit had subsequent really strong years after leaving Edmonton. And I mean, that's one of the things I fear when we talk about, kicking Skinner away. In goaltender years, he's a pretty young goalie if you think about it, and that's one of, I think, the big concerns the team has probably as well. I'll get your opinions on that, and then I want to just steer this into another direction. These two things kind of go hand in hand. When we were talking about that, the Washington game, both of you, I spoke with both of you individually, and Ahmed, I think your take was that Skinner is not playing the angle he should be playing, and that goal looks easy, but it's because he's worried about the defenseman in front of him.
Yeah.
And I've always, when that starts happening, that's when problems start, right?
Yeah.
The goaltender's job isn't to try and compensate for the defenseman's lack of checking, right? Yeah. And again, I'm going to go back to practice, and maybe they've been able to iron a couple of these things out. I'm not saying problem solved after one game, but yeah, I'm going to turn it over to you guys. Whoever wants to take the reins. Thoughts on what I just said?
Well, because you brought up that Washington thing, you're right. I watched that replay over and over again after we discussed it, and it did seem like he's compensating for the guy that's uncovered on his right-hand side, and he's not covering the entire net. And then I had to think about the days when I played goal. If there's a 2-on-none or at least a 2-on-1 situation, you're always aware of the other guy no matter what. Yeah, you take the shooter, but you're always thinking if he passes it over. And that situation was like almost two other players on his right-hand side. So he seemed like he was compensating. He was trying to basically just go ahead and shoot on my right-hand side, see if he can test my glove hand. Sure enough, the guy beat him clean. But that's what I thought was happening. And that goes back to the goalie coach, right? Because this is the guy who spends a lot of time with the guy, tells him how to take up on all these different situations, whether the puck is coming from the corner, if it's coming on a 2-on-1. You practice all of these things. So that goes back, and this is not the first coach now. We're talking a second coach, goaltending coach, and it's similar results. I've seen maybe minor improvements in Skinner's game, but really, how much has he really changed? Or what's the goal?
Honestly, I would argue at points of the season he's regressed. He's looked worse.
Right. Yeah, and we need Sean Burke, I guess, the goalie whisperer, to come in and kind of correct some of the things. But yeah, it goes beyond. But the thing is, Elaine, you touched on something there, right? I mean, when is the last time we really, really had a solid, great goalie that we didn't have to worry about, and kind of the team could make mistakes and the goalie would be there for you? I don't think I have to go back to Rolison, really, as the last guy who
Rolison
kind of
for like 20 games. Yeah, I'll give you that for 20 games.
Yeah, and then before that was Cujo, right? The guy who would bail you out if you messed up. So this is an organizational thing. Like, the organization needs to recognize that you need to invest in goalies. Case in point is passing up on Wallstead, when every Oil fan watching that draft was like, what the F are you doing, Holland? Like, we need a goalie. Here's a young guy who's touted to be a decent NHL goalie, ranked to be in the first round. He falls to you because he's supposed to go 15th or 14th or whatever, and you just pass up on the guy because he didn't get Kosa. What was that? Like some kind of a, I'm going to just pass up on it.
Not a good look, especially I think we ended up with Bourguo or something with our pick, right? And the pick right after that was none other than Wyatt Johnson.
Yeah.
Right. Not a good look. But Brendan, do you have any thoughts on any of this stuff?
I was thinking about the history of Oilers goaltending, and I might see some reflections of what Devin Dubnyk went through with what Stuart Skinner's going through. And that's paying attention to the tip before the original save, paying attention to, the rebound control before the original save, because he didn't trust the defense. And now the Oilers defense was horrid back when Devin Dubnyk was the goalie. He's got a story about the Oilers night that Gagne got 8 points, but he says he was worried more about trying to win the game, even though Gagne was racking them up, because it was like 6-5 going into the third period against Chicago. So the Oilers weren't good at defense, and I think that some of that's on the goalie for not making the save, but he was kind of worrying about doing two jobs at once, and maybe I think that's a bit where Skinner's at right now too. He's trying to do two things at once, and also having a second goalie coach seems like it would obviously improve, but you never really get rid of your techniques and your habits that you've trained in for the last 25 years as a goalie. You can't easily modify their play reactions and how they're reading a play and where they set their feet when they decide to go down. Like, you can make some adjustments, but changing the goalie's game and getting a better result is not an easy process. Like when Tiger Woods tried to rebuild his entire swing. Like, the previous swing was working, why would you need to rebuild it and take the risk that it's going to be better at the other end? I had a high school basketball coach that saw me shoot buckets. He's like, your technique's not very good. And I said, I agree. He said, well, we can spend the next 2 months working on your technique, or we can just work on your rebounding. So you can just go chase after your missed shots. Which one's going to be better for you? It's like, I'd probably have more fun just going after rebounding. Then that's what we're going to do. We're going to teach you how to be a better forward and get rebounds for yourself and your teammates, and maybe shoot less than trying to rework your entire shooting technique because it's not very good. You're not going to be efficient as a shooter. So coaching plays a big role as to what kind of outcomes you might get, but going through the process of rebuilding your game is really hard. And it's especially hard when you're doing it on the fly mid-season, when you're already under a lot of pressure and scrutiny from the rest of the team and from the media and everybody else.
Well, I want to add something. I was listening to 32 Thoughts, and it seems that like we as fans have obviously noted that the organization is not developing decent goalies and not coaching decent goalies. Friedman was saying that the talk around the league is that teams are considering trading for Skinner because they think the Oilers are just a shitty team to play on, and they feel that they can probably bring this guy into their team and he's going to be a star. And that's a real thing. So there is actually, based on what Friedman's saying, that there are actually teams out there that are thinking that Skinner would look good on their team. And that's concerning because it's one thing the fans are kind of poking fun of the team, but now that the other teams in the league know you're weak on that spot and taking advantage of it, we're toast.
I'm sure that a lot of teams thought Jesse Puyarvi would have been amazing on their team as well and whatnot. I'm by no means am I comparing the two, but I'm just saying, right? We've had different regimes. We've had three GMs with pedigree, right? Chiarelli, but let's not talk about that. Holland,
Pedigree.
Bowman. All these guys have won at least one Stanley Cup, right? Between them, they have 8 cups, I think. Is that right? 3 for Bowman, 4 for Kenny, and 1 for Chiarelli.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. These guys are. I don't know. One thing though, just a thought I had while you guys were talking was in the summer, Friedman had talked about the potential of having a Florida Panther-like goalie room where they don't necessarily have they've got a bunch of people, right? They got that Francois Allaire guy, they got Roberto Luongo, they got a few of these guys in there, and meshing of different styles. We take a look at the goalie that we've been looking at the last couple of years, and probably arguably would between us and the Cup, Sergei Bobrovsky. Up until 2019, I think it was, he had the reputation of being not a big game goaltender. Mind you, he did win a Vezina or two, but he was, I mean, he's on his 3rd team now, 4th team, something like that, right? And he didn't really start to quote unquote put it all together until he was 31 years old, around there, right?
So what you're saying is if Stu follows a Bobrovsky-like trajectory, we have to wait another 5 or 6 years before he learns how to win.
Well, I mean, he's already made 2 Cup finals. I don't know what the answer is. I'm just saying, right? That a lot of these, the trajectory is not like this, right? It's like this and then down and this and then this and then this, right? The thing is I don't know how much time we have to keep messing around, right?
I mean, sometimes you just can't trust Neil Yakupov as your second line center.
Well, I mean, you mentioned the great GMs that came and went through Edmonton. They all had a decent goalie at the time they won, right? I mean, Timmy Thomas, even for Chiarelli, even though he was an older guy, he was really good. Osgood in Detroit, and I
mean, we need an Osgood. That's what we need. We need an Osgood type performance.
But Osgood wasn't a phenomenal goalie. He was a good goalie, and same with Crawford that won the Cups with Chicago. He wasn't a phenomenal goalie. He was actually a smaller goalie, but he benefited from Seabrook and Duncan Keith. Whereas in Detroit they had probably the best defender of all time, and we have Bouchard. So there's also some other things to take into consideration here, right? It's not as simple as just the goalie. You got to have some people in front of you as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We're going around in circles. We don't have a solution. I think Skinner's what we've got for now. Let's just see what happens tonight. It's going to be interesting because I do agree, though. I mean, this is something I said last podcast. I said, here's probably what's going to happen. and we're going to go on a heater, and then we're going to think that, the corner is turned, and we're going to, move forward. And like Brendan said, my fear is the same as Brendan's. It's going to come and bite us in the ass when it matters, right?
Brendan, correct me if I'm wrong. If we don't, let's just say we can't afford that goalie. And I think the team is working from a position of weakness right now because everybody in the league knows that we need a goalie, right? What if we just traded somebody for a stay-at-home defender who's not that expensive? I really think we could benefit from a stay-at-home defender who's not concerned about any of the points, like Darnell Rush's 1-on-5, and any of that stuff. Just stays home, a little bit kind of like a Troy Stetcher, but with size, and somebody who gives a little bit of balance and clears the front of the room. I mean, my favorite defender of all time, Chris Pronger. I know he had offense, but the guy, in his own end, nobody was safe. That's the kind of guy we need. That's what I think we need. I know he's not available.
If you got $5 million, Cody Ceci might be available.
Can you believe that? Unbelievable. You know what though? I mean, you take a guy like Chris Pronger. Like I get where you're going with this, but you take a guy like Chris Pronger, and you've just changed the complexion of any team in the NHL, right? I think maybe what you're talking about is maybe like who's Doughty's partner for all those years, and then he went to Toronto. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. And he got injured.
I don't know why Jacob Slavin, the name keeps coming up. It's not him, but
no, it's not Slavin. I know who you're talking about.
What's his name? Brendan, do you remember?
Starts with an M, I think.
Doughty's partner?
Yeah.
Muzzin.
Yes, Jake Muzzin.
Yeah.
That's what you want. And that's the kind of defenseman you want.
Yeah, I think it would be great for this team. Everybody's trying to be Nick Lidstrom on this team, right? We need a Chris Pronger.
Well, I mean, I don't think you compare Jake Muzzin and Chris Pronger, but I mean, if you're looking for a Chris Pronger, I mean, there's in this NHL, there aren't many Chris Prongers, right? Chris Pronger would be like a top 5 D-man.
Oh, yeah.
And, in any era, you bring in a top 5 D-man, that's going to change the entire complexion of your team.
Of course.
If you look at the 2006 season, when we put in Chris Pronger, Jason Smith, Steve Stais.
There you go. Jason Smith or Steve Stais. Those are the guys I want. And they're not expensive.
Jake Muzzin. Right? Those are the same level of defensemen. But when you add a Chris Pronger to that lineup, even Yaro Spacek, all of a sudden, you've got Pronger. Everybody's playing down a little bit. Imagine Nurse is your number 3, right? And on the third pairing, so I don't know if like Darnell Nurse should be a Chris Pronger equivalent, but he's not.
He has the tools. He's just, I don't know, for whatever reason, he decides to become, like I said, Nick Lidstrom from night to night and try to skate right through everybody at times. But we've noticed that when he plays at home, like he plays like defensive D at his own end, Nurse is capable of playing, really solid D, and he does it.
Where I think Nurse excels, and I know this is supposed to be a Brendan question, so I'm sorry for dominating this convo, but where I think Nurse excels is when he pushes the puck up and when he's the trailer. He's got phenomenal speed to do that.
Yeah.
Where I think Nurse really struggles and pisses me off is when he's trying to go end to end every single play. I think when he's the third man or the fourth man coming in, and he did a lot of that to earn his contract in that Canadian Division season when he scored like 70 goals or whatever it was. I can't believe we thought we were going to repeat that, but Brendan, the floor is yours.
So Darnell Nurse is actually really good at making that wrist shot from the high slot as a trailer and making it land on target and getting chances. That's a great point you make, that he should be jumping up into the play and never trying to drive the play as a guy carrying the puck up the ice. He's got the feet for it, but he doesn't have the
skill,
spatial awareness.
For it, but he doesn't have
the spatial awareness to get. Yeah. The other thing Darnell doesn't do, or at least I've never heard about it, but Darnell Nurse is not obsessed with the fine points of hockey in the way that Chris Pronger was obsessed with the fine points of hockey. Chris Pronger drove his teammates mental sitting in the airport trying to deconstruct plays that happened in the last game and what we can do better next time. And he said, and everyone's like, hey, we're just here to play hockey. You don't have to be such a huge nerd. He was just a giant hockey nerd about everything that happened on the ice, in front of him, across from him, behind the net at the other end. He just want to talk about it all the time. And now he's a broadcaster talking about hockey, and he does a pretty good analysis from what he can see. But the Oilers don't have a player like that who has Darnell Nurse's skills and Chris Pronger's interest in always improving and getting better at the game and understanding the game.
So that's a real interesting point, because a couple of years back, I don't remember who it was, but I heard them talk about how relentless and ferocious Nurse is in the film room. He watches film all the time, and he's picking apart plays. And I was really surprised to hear that, because that would be my exact what you just said is exactly what I would say had I not heard that before, right?
I think I watched Pronger in the
watching basketball. Go on, sorry.
Yeah. No, I was saying I watched Pronger in the analysis, and he's really good. I actually thought did go through my mind, why don't the Oilers bring him back behind the bench? But then I realized he doesn't like Edmonton. He'd be awesome behind the bench. I think like the way he breaks it down and everything else, even on the panel, he's very astute. He says some things that make perfect sense, right? But the one thing you can't teach teams and defensive players for that matter is how to be physical in the right spots and to create some sort of fear for other players coming into your end. We played like really, I played like nothing hockey, just drop in hockey or whatever, but we didn't have guys on the team when they were on the ice or gym hockey. Other teams changed the way they played because they were afraid. If they went in the corner, they were going to get hurt. If they came in front of the net, they were going to get hurt. So we need somebody like that. And I think our team right now, the Oilers are totally missing that aspect of the game. They kind of showed it last game a little bit against Seattle. There was a little bit of payback for players taking chances, but so far in the season, it's free fall for anybody to come in front of the net, and the D is just not tough enough in my eyes. And a stay-at-home, solid D guy would probably change that complexion pretty good. Right.
We've talked about it in a couple of podcasts now, but the Oilers are very soft to play against in the defensive zone, and players are allowed to skate the puck in the places where they normally would not be allowed to. Yeah. There's no fear on the other end of crashing towards the net. There's no fear of circling the net and taking the puck, back into the high slot and getting a shot through. The lanes are all open, right? Everyone's got their sticks covered so that, maybe we're not going to get a cross seam pass across. Okay, they've got that covered. But you can skate into like right at the edge of the box and then fire away. And suddenly Stu's struggling with hard shots that are coming from 15 feet out. Even though he's got three bodies in front of him, no one are closing off the shooter.
Exactly. Yeah. It's hard to see. I've defended Stu on some of those longer shots coming in. He's got three players standing in front of him, and two of them are his own teammates who are just standing there. They're not clearing the third guy right in front of him. Yeah, he's a big guy. He can see over their shoulders, but to track the puck over somebody's shoulder and then try to crouch down and get in position, you're asking a lot because the puck can go anywhere, not to mention it's going to bounce off a couple of legs. But they just need to figure out how to clean the front of the ice. And maybe Pronger can come in and show them how to do that. Good old two-hander.
Well, they're not going to get Sean Burke in as a goaltending coach anytime soon, because once they took out that roller coaster at West Edmonton Mall, Sean Burke's got no interest in visiting
Edmonton. I would love for him to be there.
You remember that story from the 80s? He showed up at the All-Star game, and they had the guys at West Edmonton Mall, and he rode the roller coaster like 25 times. He couldn't get it.
Really? That's awesome.
That's funny. I didn't even realize they took out the roller coaster.
It was years ago.
Really? How long? How long? Like more than 5?
Do you remember, Ahmed? When were they?
I was there last year, and they have something different than the coaster inside that little play area, which is similar to the coaster, but it's much smaller scale. But I think it's probably on a while now.
It's quite a while, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
No dragon at the Scotiabank Theater, and no roller coaster in the theme park. It's a different mall than you remember, William.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to come back once in a while, buddy.
A couple years, yeah.
And the Oilers don't practice at the West Edmonton Wall anymore either. I mean, if that's what you're remembering.
That was good. I remember going to those. That was fun.
They still have skates and stuff there, though, don't they? Didn't they just do the autograph session at the moment?
Yeah, they do the autograph sessions, but I don't know if they actually skate out in the on the ice there.
Still probably better ice than Florida.
Taking jabs at Florida every chance we get, eh? I hate those guys. I won't even hide it.
Well, you know what? It's interesting. They've been talking a lot about our schedule. And I think we have Paul Maurice to thank about that. Because when we went into Florida, they were talking about how they're struggling. And Maurice had said, hey, you know what? We're kind of the same story here. The only difference is they've had a wonky-ass schedule, and our schedule's been all right. And that's why I'm worried, right? He's like, for those guys, their schedule's crazy. They'll probably, settle down a little bit now and start playing the way that they can play, right? I don't know if he's like road to dopiness and like, don't trade for a goalie, right? But
I've heard a couple of people say that, Aleem. The schedule for the Oilers has been the worst in the league, and now, actually, even this morning, I think the morning guys were talking about it. The easier part of the schedule for the Oilers is coming, whereas other teams who've played the same number of games or just one or two less have had it really easy. They've had like a lot of home games and stuff like that. So let's see.
This is what we were talking about at the start of the season, Brendan. And that's why one of the reasons why you were thinking like why it made sense to have Connor and Leon together to try and get as many points and many wins as possible, because there's not a lot of runway at the start of the season. And then hopefully we've got built up a lead and then we can kind of sort of ease in, and that hasn't happened yet. But I mean, again, I go back to what I keep going back to this. I mean, as crappy as the start's been, it's been one of the better starts in recent years, right? So
Yeah, we said at the start of the year they kind of need to go 7-3 in October to be able to build up a buffer against what's going to happen in November, because we all saw how tough it was going to be in November, and it didn't happen. They were I think maybe they were 5-4 and 1 or something out of the first 10 games. I can't remember exactly. Some sort of version of 500, 5-5-1, something like that in the first 11. And they've been chasing it ever since the end of October, and November didn't help, but they still kept their heads above water somehow. But it's not going to take more than a 2 or 3 game losing streak in December or January to push them out of the playoff picture, probably permanently. So they can't expect to win one, lose one, and keep themselves in the picture. There's just too many other teams that are in the mix right now. I mean, they're basically behind. They're behind San Jose right now, aren't they? They're tied with San Jose. They're tied with Seattle. They're tied with Los Angeles and Vegas, and Anaheim's having a banner year. Suddenly, you have 6 different teams that are fighting for spots in the Pacific Division. And then the Oiler fans are going to be looking at the calendar in April. It's like, well, if we win 4 of our next 6 games, we'll be able to grab one of those wild card spots. Fantastic. We'll make the playoffs. Good luck against Colorado in the first round with Stuart Skinner and that. Like, that just seems like the most obvious path.
Wow. I was just thinking about that, Brendan. What are we going to do in the playoffs if we were landing a Colorado or a Dallas and they were missing players,
Well, I mean, how long is Roslovic out for? The coach said multiple weeks, right?
Yeah,
so it's not, the schedule might be getting easier, but it's not getting easier on us, because now we've got this parade to the infirmary, right? Roslovic's out. There's a couple of other guys that are nicked up as well. We just got Nuge back, but
Kapanen's
somebody else out. Kapanen, right? He just got re-injured. And, we saw Nuge coming back. That's a big part of our PK. Another guy that PKs is Kapanen.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I mean, I do feel that we need to do something in terms of an addition, whether it's a goalie or a defender, to kind of like
Jake Wallman's out too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And the Colorados and the Dallas team that we have this year, they look dominant. They both look dominant. And I don't know what's the answer. Landeskog's back, and I know, Liam, you hate the guy, but he's playing really good. He's that player that plays both ends of the ice for them, and he seems like he's doing really well, although he hasn't scored a lot, but he's playing really well for them. And that team's got all the confidence in the world right now. That's the team to beat, in my eyes.
I don't want to play against Dallas in the playoffs when Pete DeBoer is not there to mess with the goalie's head.
We got our former coach there to mess with our goalie's head.
Yeah, well, sky's the limit for Jake Ottinger without Pete yelling at him from the bench.
Gullickson picked apart our PK that last game, right, when we played him. Not much to write home about. Hopefully we got that rematch circled on the calendar. I mean, we're talking playoffs right now. Let's focus on this next month here, guys. Right?
Playoffs.
So we've got the Wild tonight. We've got Seattle on Thursday, and then what else is on? Do we play Saturday?
I'll check the schedule quick, but I think we're every second day moving forward for the next little while, so they are going to be busy here.
So we got Thursday's the Kraken, Jets are Saturday, Sabres are Tuesday, and then Detroit. So I guess when we meet up again next Tuesday, we'll have 3 games to go over and hopefully 3 W's.
It feels like a good time to play against the Jets. It feels like a good time to play against Detroit. Probably a bit of a tougher go against Minnesota with their goaltending way it is right now.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, Sabres, that's what I'm looking for. Like, show up,
guys.
Guys.
Circle that on the calendar. I want to see how we fare against Seattle on Thursday after that. If they're gonna, the Marchment repeats. See how that goes, right?
Yeah, it'll be a bit feisty, but I think the Seattle wins in the last year on the schedule have been an aberration as opposed to the historic domination of Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl over the Seattle Kraken. What we saw on Saturday was a basic template match of Edmonton versus Seattle, and just happens over and over and over again. And I think that will return to the statistical average once again next time Edmonton plays Seattle.
Hopefully.
Good.
We're cutting it close on time. I know we wanted to talk about Team Canada. Do you think we have a few minutes to get into that?
Let's do it in 5 minutes, and I'll start with the thesis. Binnington's not your starter, and Logan Thompson's probably your best option, with Adrian Kempe as your backup. Any other thoughts on how Canada's going to do in the goaltending position in just a few weeks at the Olympics?
I thought Skinner for sure was going to make the team. I don't know.
I was thinking Skinner would be the dark horse, especially after that interview preseason.
I love the guy's confidence, man. Aim high. Why not? I love the fact that he thinks confident. Like, I hope things work out for the guy and he becomes Team Canada's goalie at some point. But yeah, I don't want to poke fun of the guy. I appreciate a goalie's got to keep a positive state of mind, or they're going to end up like Campbell in the minors, and God knows how much he'll be collecting every year for not playing in the NHL, right?
I can absolutely see Skinner playing for Team Canada at the Spengler Cup as a professional playing in Europe one day. That seems like the perfect spot for Mr. Skinner sometime in his 30s.
Yeah.
Davos.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, there's still, what happened to Aiden Hill?
He's coming back from injury. He's almost back from injury, so he could still be in play, but I don't think he's played enough games for Team Canada to look at him and say he's the guy. We have Thompson, who's played reasonably well, and
when was the last time there was such a question mark in net for Team Canada? I mean, like, look at the goaltenders we've had. We've had like Luongo, we've got Carey Price, Brodeur,
yeah,
right?
Patrick Roy.
Yeah, Curtis Joseph, Patrick Roy, Grant Fuhr.
What happened?
Ken Dryden. What's going on? What happened?
Well, that's I mean, when I'm thinking Team Canada now, outside of the obvious, which is the goaltending question, I want to see, for me, it's going to be intriguing to see if they're going to bring in Bedard, Schaefer, and Celebrini, and who they're going to take out, because those guys are playing amazing. You can't say no. So now it's about.
We should take out McDavid.
You never know. But some of these.
Let him sit and stew, and then he's like, I got to win the cup now.
These young kids are all like top skill, offensive skill players. So they're not like the Tom Wilsons that you're going to take out. You need those guys too. So if you're going to take out, you have to take out skill to bring in skill. So I want to see. I think Bedard is.
They're not taking out McDavid. Come on.
Yeah, no, not McDavid. But I mean, who else is there on the team that could potentially? Crosby's going to be team captain. Obviously, he's not coming out. Like, who is on the top six that you can take out and bring in a Celebrini or Connor Bedard? I think their play has warranted them being on the team. I'd love to see them on Team Canada.
You're not giving them Brad Marchand spot, are you?
Oh, we need that guy. I mean, he's offense and he's a little bit of abrasiveness there too, right? So, but you know what though? Bedard's showing a lot of bite in his game. I saw him yapping at the other team after they were down, and he got 4 points and he came back. He was challenging the entire bench. He was looking at them and chirping them. I like that. That's kind of like Marchand.
Yeah, Bedard's figuring it out. He's going to be a sneaky good player for a long time. So
yeah,
he'll have his points in the points column over time, and then he'll take that team to the playoffs at some point. Maybe not this year, but it's getting a little bit closer in Chicago.
That's right. What do you think?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Tell us about your Team Canada, predictions as we get ready.
I don't know what's going to happen, to be honest. I haven't been paying a whole lot of attention aside from the goaltending woes. I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, I feel like you have to make some room for Bedard and Celebrini, but it's it's a tough, like, who exactly what you said. Who are they gonna take out? And I think it might even come down to, things always seem to, quote unquote, work their way out through injury, right? It might take an injury or something like that to set it up, right?
Can we put McKinnon with Crosby and McDavid on one line just for a few shifts to see how it looks?
Well, we know what's going to happen. If it's anything like that last tournament, McKinnon's going to take all the shots and not pass the puck, right?
He plays like a chip on his shoulder all the time. I love McKinnon, but man, oh man, he hates being in McDavid's shadow. If anybody says McDavid's the best player in the world, I feel like he goes home and he cries on his pillow. I really do feel that.
They had Crosby and McKinnon talking about other players in Canada, And I can't remember what they said, like, who's the fastest or who's the smoothest? And he named a bunch of these guys. He didn't name McDavid. Crosby's like, how about McDavid? Right? And he's like, oh, yeah. It's like
Oh, yeah.
hates him. Hates him.
That guy. Yeah, he hates him.
Remember that? Was it a 2-on-1 and he didn't pass to Connor?
Yeah.
Remember that?
I'll take the shot myself.
So who wants to play with Connor then? It's not Marchand. It's not McKinnon. Who are you going to put with them?
Martin's Holgini. I don't know.
Oh, those guys would absolutely kill it. Oh my god.
No kidding. Man, it's exciting times, but you know what? Italy's got to get it together. Apparently, they don't have a rink for us yet, and the rink that they've built is 4 feet short.
They don't even have a plan B.
Says the realtor. You guys, let's focus on the most important thing. There's no venue yet.
So we're cheering on Italy to get it all together, man. The rink is 4 feet small and a couple of feet not wide enough. So I don't know what's going to happen there, but the league's now a little bit worried it's going to be a super small rink.
Well, the NHL sanctioned outdoor games. They're just going to have to build an ODR somewhere at a ski resort out in Italy and play all the games there.
Seriously. Would this fly if this was the NBA going there and the court was like a couple of feet small? No chance.
That's right. I say you just have to build it all outdoors as a temporary facility and just do it like they used to play the Olympics back in the 30s outdoors. Let the players solve it on the ice.
Love to see it. That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Right? Anyway, I think we've come to the end of the show here, guys. A lot we've discussed. I'm looking forward to the game tonight. Any predictions for tonight's game?
Brennan.
I'll go with a 2-1 overtime loss against Minnesota.
What about you, Ahmed?
You know what? I've been negative for the last little while. If anybody's watching this podcast, they definitely hate me as an Oiler fan. So I'm going to say it's going to be an Oilers win 4-3 for the Oilers. And I think Draisaitl is going to have a big night.
Man, you took my thunder. I was thinking 6-2 Oilers, and I was picking Draisaitl to have another night too.
Nice.
We'll see what happens.
I hate agreeing with you, man.
Send this draft pick home.
Yeah.
There's a reason we didn't pick you, buddy.
Oh, that'd be awesome, wouldn't it?
Yeah. All right, guys. Okay, let's sign off. We'll see you guys next week, and hopefully, got these 3 games coming up. Hopefully, we get some points. Before we do that though, really quick. What do you think we're going to do in the next 3 games? What's the record going to be?
I think they're going to have a winning record. There's a couple of teams that they have to settle score with, including Buffalo, like I mentioned. I think that they're gonna beat Detroit and Buffalo. I think they're gonna spank those 2 teams. Pretty good.
Brennan?
I'll give it 3 points out of a possible 6.
So we've got Minnesota, Seattle, and Winnipeg, right? I say we go 2-0-1.
Oh, sorry. You mean the immediate next 3 games? I went past the Winnipeg game. I went to Detroit.
Next 3 games because we're going to be talking next Tuesday, likely, right?
Okay. Yeah. Then I think they're going to beat Winnipeg because Hellebuck is out. I think he got injured, right? If I'm not wrong, so he's gone. And I think that they're going to do well against Minnesota tonight as well. I think that they're going to put it together. I just felt like Connor and Dry are completely like fed up with the BS. So and Nuge back. So no more excuses.
All right, well, let's see what happens. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in.
Okay,
And we'll see you next time.
Sounds good. Take care, guys.